Okay, Hotel family, my name is Brother Larry.
Right.
Welcome to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. We meet here every other Wednesday in honor of William Mackey Jr., Amos Wilson, Luis Reyes Rivera, Elhaj Malik Shabazz, Brother Gil Noble, Brother Hassan, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Ivan Van Sertima, Mr. Viola Maddox, and all the historians who gave up fame and fortune. Brother Harold, these historians, we never want to forget them. They gave up a lot. We meet here to keep their name going and their legacy. So we remember these folks. So for the people that came out in the live, give yourself a big hand. We appreciate you supporting the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club, and we appreciate the Zoom audience supporting the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. Now we're going to bring the camera over to the Amos collection in Sababo to help us work with Amos Wilson. We have Blueprint for Black Power. We don't have don't have anymore the latest Amos book, Psychology of Self-Hatred Toward the Reclamation of the African Mind. We have some more in 2 more weeks. We got Black on Black Violence, African-Centered Consciousness versus New World Order, Awakening the Natural Genius of Black Children, The Falsification of African Consciousness, Issues of Manhood in Black and White, African-Centered Consciousness versus New World Order, The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child. In honor of Luis Ray Rivera, we have Jazz in Jail, S.K. Damiani, Distorted Truths, The Bastardization of African Cosmetology, Brother Earl Ponder, Revealing the Unspeakable Bible Verses, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and we got Confronting the Color Crisis in the African Diaspora, and that's by Empress Jamaica. So we have these books. Also, these are good reads. Charles Hammond, Still Struggling.
Yes, sir.
Cynthia McKinney, When China Sneezes, From the Coronavirus Lockdown to the Global Political Economic Crisis. Everybody claims they care about the people from Georgia. In my opinion, Cynthia McKinney is the only one that cares about it. Theodore Allen, Invention of the White Race. I picked this book up, The Lost Jews, Last of the Ethiopian Falashas. Brother Tim Wise, White Like Me, Reflections on Race from a Privileged Son. And Sister Carol Alexander, The Unspoken Truth About Racial Divide, White Rage. Dr. Scott Whitaker, brother out of Atlanta, out of Georgia, called Medicine, The Causes and Solution to the Disease and Malnutrition and the Medical Sins that are Killing the World. Our brother, Ayo Kamani,
Yes, sir.
Jays Are the Problem, World War II, COVID-19, Media Censorship. Our brother, the Irritated Genie, did an excellent job on this book, and from what I understand, he done came out with part 2.
Oh, wow.
Oh man, bad brother. In honor of Dr. Ben, black man of the noun and his family. Didn't have too many computers back then, but Dr. Ben did an excellent job on this book. The Truth Truth About COVID-19 by Dr. Ronald Joseph Nicola and Ronald Cummings, exposing the Great Reset, lockdown, and vaccine passport. And this classic blockbuster, The Real Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and the Global War on Democracy and Public Health. These books is unbelievable. So if you want to get the real information, get these. And I just picked this one up. Causes Unknown, the epidemic of sudden death in 2021-22. Dr. Edward Downs, forwarded by Robert Kennedy, tells you about all the heart attacks that's happening. So we have these publications for people to read and get information. I'm going to read a couple of events, families. Tomorrow, Thorough Black Talk with Ted, Keisha, Ashe, Brother Black, and Sister Marcia. That comes on at 8 o'clock on YouTube and Facebook Live. That's one of the hottest shows on the East Coast. Comes on Thursday at 8 o'clock. Also, our Philadelphia family with Sister Empress Chi and the Million Women's March. That's Blog Talk Radio. That comes on Saturday at 10:30. And the number is 1-319-527-6189. Sister Empress Chi and them in Philadelphia family is doing an excellent job. And you can log on Saturdays at 10:30, and you even have a call in and you can talk. Also, out of Birmingham, Alabama, WSYP 95.1 FM, Sankofa Radio, every Monday at 10 a.m. Io Kamati, the Irritated Genie, live. That program comes on at 10 a.m. on Revolutionary Radio, and Brother Io Kamati, with his book and War Near Rising website, he's a bad man out of D.C.
Yes, sir.
Also, our Baltimore family, State of the City, 1590. Tune in radio at Saturday at 12 o'clock. And then he comes on sometime Wednesday and Thursday. And he's also on Instagram under Mohammed the Camel. This is Brother Darren Muhammad, State of the City. He'll tell you everything. And Steve Coakley, reincarnation of Steve Coakley. Brother Darren is a bad brother, and we love him. Also, every Tuesday at 7 p.m., Dr. Aline, Your Immunity Project. That comes on 7 p.m., Your Immunity Project. And if you put your email in the chat, I'll give you information on that program. That's Dr. Aline. Also, African Echoes. Brother Danny, Brother True, and our Newark, New Jersey connection, they have a Friday study group at 8 o'clock. Brother Trust Graham is the mediator of that group, and they're doing the psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat toward a reclamation of the African mind. That's Amos's books, The Bible We Did It. And when you think you know something, get on Trust and Study group. The brother is unbelievable. Also, on Saturday, the Know Thyself study group out of Asbury Park. Brother True and the brothers from out of Asbury Park. Brother Trust Graham is also the mediator of that study group. That comes on Saturday at 1:30. And they're doing the destruction of black civilization by Chancellor Williams. Excellent study group. Also, on Wednesdays at 2 to 2:30, Minefield, the Simotep community, with Dr. James McIntosh and Betty Dobson. Also, on 99.5 WBAI, that program comes on every Wednesday from 2 to 2:30. And Sister Richardina Theodore, I think that's her name if I got it correct, she's also a member of that program. So that's the Simotep organization. Also, Community Cop, that comes on every Tuesday at 5 o'clock with Brother Mike Graves, Noel Leader, and Julian Harper, Manhattan Neighborhood Network. That's an excellent program. You can view all the Community Cop programs on YouTube under Community Cop. Also, the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. All the lectures is on YouTube under BK William Mackey Jr. History Club. So these are just some community events that we provide information to the global black community for people to get information what's going on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to kick off Women's History Month. Ladies and gentlemen, give yourself a great big hand for our keynote speaker on great black women of the struggle. Brother Mike Graves is going to do the first presentation of Women's History Month. Give him a big hand, Brother Mike Graves.
Did my best,
Yeah, but Mom.
yeah.
Hotep,
Tap.
Hotep,
Tap.
say I am,
I am.
because we are.
Because we are.
I am, because we are.
We are.
So it's an honor to be here tonight at the William Mackey History Club. And you know, you can make sure, Ray, that the Zoom audience can see, because you probably didn't know I was going to get this close, but I want to see my notes.
Can y'all see him good?
So, got a lot to,
Zoom audience, can you see the speaker? Yeah, Mike.
okay, just want to, somebody said yes. Okay. So, in any event, want to cover a lot tonight, but all of my instincts are telling me to allow you to, if you have a burning question, you don't have to wait to the Q&A. If you really want to ask something, or even if you want to make a comment, it's okay tonight. This is Women's History Month, and today is actually called Women's International Day. The month of March is Women's History Month, but today, Wednesday, is actually Women's International Day. But my focus, without apology, is our women, black women, African women. So if anybody wants to look out into the cosmos and start praising some Europeans or somebody else, that's on them. That's really not my focus tonight. I'm not dismissing them as human beings, but my concern is, well, look, Gil Noble said it best. He said, black is the color of my TV tube. And so I follow him by saying, black is the color of my TV tube. And that's as international as you can get, because there's no place you can go where you're not going to find black people. And truth be told, that if it wasn't for us, it wouldn't be nobody on the planet. No human beings anyway. The animals would be there, the crocodiles and whales and lions and all that stuff, but you wouldn't see no human beings if it wasn't for us. Black women is the forerunners of human civilization. Black women. So to those of you that might be at home and you with your white partner, you can make an excuse if you want to. Just say that, well, black women are the mothers of civilization, so it's okay, think black for the night. It's all right. So there are a lot of things, like I said, I want to cover. And certainly, like I said, if you got a certain type of itch where you want to cover something and you don't want to wait till the Q&A, it's okay tonight because it's your night. From the outset, there are a lot of women in our history that did great things, and I can't name them all tonight, nor would I try. I don't think anybody can name them all. But suffice it to say that a lot of great women did some great things, and for the most part, the amazing thing about them is that they were ordinary. And when I say ordinary, I mean ordinary. They weren't born with silver spoons in their mouth. They didn't necessarily have an army behind them. They were not especially gifted in any one particular discipline. For the most part, there was a vacuum, there was a need, and they answered the call. And if you find that, that same situation with men. Most of the men who did great things were ordinary. I don't know if it's in the Bible, but, in church, people always say God uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. I don't think that's scripture, but it makes sense and it's often quoted in church. I see a few people nod, so I think I'm right. That is not scripture, but it's all the other scripture we use often. People say God moves in mysterious ways. I don't know if that's in the Bible either. I've never seen it in the Bible, but people like to say that in church too. So in any event, what I want to do tonight, while I'm talking about people that did things, I want you to see yourself. Find you in it. Ray just talked about Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Professor Mackey, and so many others. You don't have to have a PhD to do great work. It just so happens that they had PhDs. But I'm going to talk about some people tonight, and hopefully at some point you'll see yourself. Oftentimes, people say, well, you can never do what Malcolm did. You can never do what Garvey did. But if you look real closely, they were ordinary. They did extraordinary things, but they were ordinary. They weren't reared or brought up to do what they did. They just found that need there and a vacuum there, and they answered the call. And certainly a person like Dr. King did not have to involve himself in civil rights. He was born a prince in our sense. He was a preacher's kid, middle class, had money, so he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to put his life on the line. He was guaranteed his father's church, and with his degrees, he could have been a dean of any university, any black university, and certainly white universities too. Could have been a dean, could have been a college president, a whole lot of things. So from the outset, I want to just give you some examples, and again, I repeat this. I want you to see yourself, or see this is something I could have done, or see yourself as, well, if it was to happen to me, I would answer the call too. Let's see if that happens, and if you truly believe that, then that's a good thing. And if you don't see yourself in that, then you might have examples with something else that you could see yourself in, and that's fine too. Now, from the outset, there are certain individuals. Has anybody here heard of Yaa Asantewaa? Yes?
Ashe, yeah.
Okay, good, good. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna mention some people, and to tell you the truth, when I mention them, I'm hoping that some people don't know, so they can introduce themselves to it. And then if it's somebody that you're familiar with and you might know that subject area better than me, that's cool too, you know. And so, you know, you can say Ashe or whatever. If you feel more comfortable saying amen,
We could say all.
then you can say amen,
We could say
because
all.
it means the same thing.
Right.
In church, when you say amen, you're saying, let it be so.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in certain African cultures, they'll just say Ashe. That's let it be so. So we're going to move tonight. From the outset, Ya Santiwa, she was a warrior queen. How many people saw Black Panther, the movie Black Panther? Okay, quite a few of you saw it. Y'all like that movie, right? What about the warrior queen?
I want to see that. but I
Everybody
didn't see
seen it?
yet.
No,
No, I didn't see
I
it.
didn't see it all.
You didn't see it all?
No, I saw some of it, just the beginning part.
Okay. Okay. Well, Ya Asante was a real, authentic warrior. She was a warrior. She was from Ghana. But let me, since, you know what, I'm going to hold Ya Asante, we'll do her right next. Since Queen Nzinga preceded her by a couple of centuries, I'll do Queen Nzinga first. Anybody ever heard of Queen Nzinga? I know you probably even met somebody with that name because it's more popular now. And as Rajin mentioned, she's from Angola. She was a queen in Angola. And she was dealing with the Portuguese even before the Britons, you know, the British, before they got into colonizing and making enslaved people and plundering and raiding. It was the Portuguese and Spain were the first ones to do it under the auspices of the Pope. And so with Queen Nzinga, she not only was she born in Angola, northern, you know, Angola, she was able to fight the Portuguese and their incursions. Now you have to remember that at that time, Europeans came to Africa with guns, you know, and Africans did not have guns. Europeans had got that technology from the Chinese. The Chinese used to blow up gunpowder. It was more of a festive thing. But the European mind saw that as this could be a potential weapon. You know, they're making stuff explode and they seeing things fly, so they can make it a weapon. So in any event, they came to Africa with guns. And so in her particular case, if she was born, okay, she was born in 1583 approximately. And so you had the Portuguese that made military incursions, and there came a point where they had to fight. And Queen Nzinga led her countrymen in that fight. Her father and her brother passed. Some Europeans like to say that she poisoned her brother. You know, I don't know whether it's true or not. But, you know, since Europeans say that quite often, I'm going to choose not to believe that for the night. And if you do, that's fine. But I don't believe she poisoned her brother. But in any event, she took the mantle of leadership and fought the good fight for 37 years. Fought them tooth and nail. And Has anybody here ever did anything really good for 37 years? Anybody here can say that it's something that they did and they stayed on it that long or longer? 37 years? What might that be?
I ate a lot of fried chicken.
You eat a lot of fried chicken, okay. Anybody else?
Excuse me.
Um,
Lived.
You live.
Live.
Okay. That's good, because we all eat, everybody has a lot.
Lived.
Life,
You've enjoyed yourself,
enjoy yourself,
Mhm.
taking each day
enjoy your
serious?
moms, enjoy your relatives, your friends.
Yes.
Wear expensive scarves.
No, that's good.
Let's see.
The scarves,
Let's check
he's
that.
Where you
he's
from?
stylish that way,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
no question.
It's a story, it's a story.
Oh, he's the one with the scarf. He got
This
the
is
money.
fun.
That's a $50,000 scarf.
No.
Yeah, so in any event, she fought the good fight for 37 years. Most people, when you talk about war with servicemen in America, of course, you know, those that enlist most of the times, it's between 2 and 4 years. And you might have a few tours of duty where you impact the enemy. And they realize that it's an in and out thing, whether it was Vietnam, whether it was Desert Storm, other wars. They don't do that too long because they know there's a stress level that goes along with fighting. But she was able to fight the good fight her entire adult life. 37 years, and that's noteworthy. You know, some people can pastor a church 30 years, 40 years, and they're successful in that they made an impact. But it's kind of hard to do anything for 20, 30 years. You know, some people can be married that long and it works, and it's incredible. If you can be married to one person for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, that's incredible. If you can do that, especially in today's times, where, you know, everything is so wide open that, you know, so just think of a warrior that in those times, we're talking about in the 1600s, to be able to fight this European, where you just seen ship after ship coming, and you were determined. It didn't, turn you from being able to fight the good fight, and that's noteworthy, which is why I'm mentioning Nzinga. Now, with respect to Yaa Asantewaa, in her particular case, you're talking about somebody. Now, you know, just with Nzinga, she was militarily trained by her father at a very early age. So she didn't have much of an adjustment to it. With Yaa Asantewaa, it was different. Now we're talking about Ghana. Has anybody ever heard of the whole story with the golden stool? Anybody heard of that? The golden stool. What's the golden stool?
It's like a stool, but it was a traditional ornament that the Ashanti had, and the British wanted to get it, and she
That's
was like,
true.
nah,
Okay,
and they had to fight over that stool.
right. I think you wanted to say something about the stool.
Well, this is my first time actually hearing about that, but there's a lot of different gold stools and different aspects, you know.
Mhm.
So I never heard about that when they have, you know, different enlightenments, different camps of
Right.
soldiers and stuff. So I wasn't really familiar with
Okay,
the one that you was talking
okay.
about.
Well, the golden stool is very important to the Asante people. Now, Rajin just called them the Ashanti people, and most people here, when you refer to them, the people of northern Ghana, primarily Kumasi and places like that, most people call them Ashanti. They call themselves Asante. because the British so arrogant that they rename people. Your name is George and they'll call you Georgie or Porgy or Pudding Pie, something like that. They just gonna take your name and play with it or do whatever they want.
But black people do that too, a lot.
Well, you know, sometimes preachers have the poetic license to rephrase words, you know, that stuff, you know, we do in the black church, that's different, but
His name
Europeans don't have the right to name us.
His name ain't
So,
Barry.
so in any event, they're not Ashanti people, even though you're going to hear Ashanti more than Asante. These are the Asante people. Well, she was Asante, and that's the largest group in Ghana. I think Airway is next, and then the God people and various others, but the number one, the largest group, and probably the proudest in Ghana are the Asante because they view themselves as warriors. So in any event, when there came a time where the British came with weapons,
You're differentiating the two Ghanas, right?
yeah, well, there's an historical Ghana, and then there's where Ghana is based now. I'm just using Ghana in terms of where it's at now, you know, just so it won't cause confusion because that other Ghana is what, like, at least 500-600 miles away from. But, you know, we'll use, when I say Ghana, we'll talk about the Ghana as it's presently constructed. So, in any event, she saw that her country was overrun by the British. The Portuguese came later because the Portuguese was all over the place. And like I said, Spain, they were the two first nations who were able to navigate their way to Africa, which they're not far. Spain and Portugal was once one country, and Portugal broke off from Spain. And actually, on a good day, if you were in Spain and places like Italy, it's a short little ride to Africa. It's right nearby. So, in any event, she went to a meeting, and I'll make a long story short. She went to a council meeting, and the Europeans were dictating what was going on. There was a governor general, who was by the Queen given that land and dictated the terms. And one of the terms not only were they taking all the gold out of that Volta region in the northern part of Ghana and the other river, they were demanding, after taking over, enslaving people, they also demanded the golden stool. Now, to put it short, it's a stool like any other stool. Yes, it was made out of pure gold, but it's the soul of the Asante. It's a whole story that goes along with, you know, our culture and spirit and what that stool represents. It is the representation of the Asante people and their history and culture, that golden stool. So when that governor demanded the golden stool, they wasn't happy. They wasn't going for it.
Excuse me, do you know where it's at now? The Romans?
Yes, they have it.
They have it?
The Asante, yes.
Oh.
Okay, to get ahead of myself, they never gave it up.
Uh-huh.
But other things, there were compromises in so many other areas. The one thing that they wasn't going to give, you was going to have to take it, was the golden stool. Now, in any event, and that's not any religious hocus pocus spooky stuff, that's factual. They wasn't going to give that up. So when they were making those demands, and all these men, they had various chiefs there. They had already taken the king from them. And with chiefs there, various small chiefs of various ethnic groups there. When they laid down the demand, and nobody challenged what, I'll give you his name. I think I got it scribbled in my notes. His name was Governor General of the Gold Coast, Frederick Hodgson. So, this is when Yaa Asantewaa, and her name, by the way, Yaa just means you were born on a Thursday. Now, Asante means like enlightened. It also means you're ahead of your time. You're brilliant. That you know, you just get it. And you're brilliant. So she spoke extemporaneously when she heard what this Governor General was saying to black men. And nobody would say anything. I'll read her words so you'll get it, what she was saying, and then you could better understand movies like The Black Panther, movies like The Woman King. This is what Queen Yaa Asantewaa said, because she became a real queen mother. She said, "How can our people sit back and look while white men take away our chiefs and king, and then demand the golden stool?" The British general, she was speaking directly to him and said, "If you chiefs of Asante are going to act like cowards and not fight, you should exchange your loincloths for my undergarments." Do you understand what she's saying?
Yes, read it.
If y'all want to-
She's saying, if y'all are men and you're going to take what he's saying to you right now, then exchange your clothes and put on my underwear. In other words, put on my panties.
That's what the lady said, right?
So she's telling the men on the spot,
Go, girl.
y'all, she's saying on the spot, y'all ain't men. Because men don't take that.
And they're gonna be told.
Right on the spot, you go to war. Do you know what she did? Does anybody know what she did at that council meeting? After she said this.
Yeah, I think that's what she did.
Okay, well what she did was to emphasize the point that she ain't playing and that she about it. She snatched a gun from one of the Europeans.
Oh, okay.
Snatched his gun and shot it up in the air.
What did
Y'all
they do?
understand that?
What did they do, Mike?
Okay, I'm going to get to that. But here's what. Do you understand what that means? To snatch a soldier's gun and then shoot it up in the air. To show the men, you telling the men, I'm not afraid, y'all afraid? In other words, they can be killed.
Oh, yeah.
They can be beaten. We can fight. One thing you can do is fight. Whether you win or lose, you can fight. That is like tantamount to being in court. It's like being in a courtroom and you on trial. And to let everybody know that you ain't playing and that you in the courtroom to fight, you actually you take a court officer's gun and you shoot it up in the air. That's what it's like doing. It's like you on trial, you in a courtroom, and you take a court officer's gun and you shoot it up in the air to let everybody know how serious you are. So you saying, this ain't your courtroom, you're not in charge of me. So that's what Yaa Asantewaa did. Can you imagine being a man and being there and watch her do that? There's some other comparisons that hopefully I can get to, because I'm gonna start moving a little faster, but I wanted to set the table with them, because those are continental Africans that did that in their homeland, you know, under the threat of a gun, and yet, whether it was Queen Nzinga or Yaa Asantewaa, showed that there's a belief in we're somebody. And, you know, like I said, you know, the Asante people is extremely proud. They're proud, you know, today, they're like that today. If you go to Ghana, they want you to know that they're Asante. And I'm sure that Airway and God people and others feel the same way, but it's special among the Asante people to let you know that they're Asante. So let's get to some people. Let's bring it here. I wanted to say that in Africa, I didn't want to go to ancient Kemet, which you hear more often than not. When people start talking about African history, they're talking about one particular place, you know, that they give credit to in terms of intelligence and being able, you know, to develop technology and know the stars and all these things that go along with it, geometry, mathematics, science, and such. You know, oftentimes you find yourself talking about ancient Kemet, you know, Egypt. But I'm sure everybody here heard the Sojourner Truth. We're going to talk about right here. And this was another ordinary person. She was born in 1797. I'd say a really fantastic person. When you look at her history, she escaped slavery with her infant son. Infant daughter, pardon me. In 1826, she came back 2 years later to get her son, which she had to leave at that time. And just to show you what kind of determination she had, she actually went to court. And she was the first black person to go to the New York State Supreme Court because she was from upstate New York. And she was able to win custody of her son. And this was incredible at that time. Now, would she have won that case in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, highly unlikely? It doesn't matter, you know, how good the legality was, it would just be dismissed. But at that time in New York State, she's able to do that, and then obviously she made her mark in so many different areas, but just that whole motherhood thing, to be able to get her son and actually to escape with an infant daughter was incredible at that time. I'm just sensitizing people moving their hands, right? You know, so I'm almost stopping thinking that you doing something, because I said, you know, tonight, you know, you can kind of like anytime you want to, but incredible one. She's one, and certainly she was the one, okay, that went to a convention of women in Ohio, because she was working with a lot of abolitionists. She was definitely fighting the institution of slavery. And at that time, she made that statement, "Ain't I a woman too?" which sort of, which gay rights movements use to this very day. They like to find people in history, and they kind of characterize her as, let's just say, gender conscious, where she's fighting for the rights of women. She made that clear in that speech. You'd have to look at the whole speech not just the part where she just talked about equal rights for all women. When she was saying that, what she was saying is that even though it's a women's convention, it was a white women's convention. But she's saying that I'm a part of this fight, but the fight is to free all black people. You know, not just free white women, because white women didn't have much in the way of rights then. So they were fighting for their rights. Do you know that in the 60s, white women very rarely could ever even get an apartment? You know, they had to have a man to get an apartment in the 60s, especially in the 50s and 60s. You could not get credit cards, you could not walk into some establishments without a man and sit down to dinner. You couldn't even do that even then. So imagine 100, 150 years ago, 200 years ago, the rights of white women, no, they didn't have much. So their conventions, their suffrage movements, when black people came, whether it was Harriet Tubman later on, or in this particular case, Sojourner Truth, it was for black women. And she made that clear, but now they kind of use her to say that ain't our women's speech as a call to black women to support the gay movement, which are totally different, and you should not be a part of that, in my humble opinion. Now, if you're gay and you're fighting for gay rights, you should not use a black organization that's about civil and human rights as a springboard to get to what your true goal is, which is what Black Lives Matter do. They're, you know, but I'm not going to delve into Black Lives Matter tonight, but that's their whole thing. You know, they ride the wave of black accomplishments to get where they need to get, to draw in the people, but their real goal, as they point out, is for gay rights. And, you know, all that goes with that, plus, you know, man-boy stuff and all that, perverted stuff, so. But in any event, she was able to do that, and very captivating orator, you know, Sojourner Truth, and was able to be a keynote at a lot of conventions and different things that white male abolitionists would take her there, because she was heavy on the abolition of slavery. Now, Harriet Tubman, now I'm sure that, is there anybody in the room? I know there's probably
That's
nobody
my
in the
favorite,
room.
Harriet Tubman.
Harriet Tubman. What do you like about Harriet Tubman so much? If I can ask that.
Well, you can. What I like about Harriet Tubman, first of all, is that she's African American, she's a black woman, and my grandmother's name was Harriet. Okay.
Okay.
So coming up in school and everything, you know.
So speak loud so
and studying black
Zoom
history about the women that was in the struggle, because that's similar to what this meeting is about. Now, Harriet Tubman, she was determined, and she wasn't afraid of the masters, the Caucasian masters. She wasn't afraid of them. Because remember they hit her on her head?
Okay.
And they was wrong. She said, well, master, I'm going to tell you this, you're wrong. You know, so just a lot of, you know, things I loved about Harriet Tubman. And she fought for her people. See, fighting for your people, that means something that you have to have in your heart and in your mind. You got to really love somebody to fight for them. Right?
Okay.
And she went through all of that water. She was a traveler. And she had on that long cloak. And she had that gun in her hand. And she was determined. So that's what I really like about her.
Okay.
And then later on.
So you like that she carried a gun?
No, that's not the first thing I like.
Don't avoid that. Say yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay.
But see,
Yeah, I thought you was ashamed of it. Say yeah.
I'm not ashamed of
I'm glad
nothing.
she
You
carried it.
misinterpret things today. It's different things
Say I
about
wish it
guns.
was a 45.
You know, it's different things about guns. You got police guns, you got other guns, different things belong to different guns and organizations.
Okay.
I don't know everything about it, but I do know back then, like that was a gun from the slaves.
Okay.
So
okay.
I don't want to keep talking. This is your class.
Okay, no, I got it. Basically, you like Harriet Tubman because of her
Because
heart.
I'm her.
her heart,
And I'm her.
and you heard. That's good because
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know if you was here, but when I initially started, I want people to see themselves in some of these personalities.
And she kept saving money and getting money, and they kept taking it. You know, trying to find a way to get in and spend it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Every
but
time she put bills, she had her little money, because they got, the slaves had particular type of money bags, right? And every time she said something, that man comes up, I bought this here from the town. She said, you did what? Then she had to bill her money back again. Excuse me. So I said, look, I don't want to be like that.
All right. Well, Harriet, tell me, anybody else?
I'm James Baldwin.
Anything you like? Anything you liked about her? Yes.
That's
sir.
fact.
Every time you look back into the South, 300 times to bring slaves back. So she didn't just.
You mean she brought out 300 people in the 19 trips?
You're correct, 19 trips,
Yes.
300 people.
Yes.
Oh,
I
'cause
love
like
I
that.
was like, what?
And she
Well,
said.
yeah, that's a high number of times going to the South.
300 times.
So you like the fact that she brought people out
She brought people with her.
and she didn't have to, right?
She didn't.
But
didn't
she-
back at all.
She took her freedom she
at
put it
least
at
19
risk.
times.
to go get others.
To help everybody else.
She thought beyond
She said
herself.
She said he'd be a dead slave before she.
Now, how
went
many
back
people-
to Ecuador.
How many people today think beyond themselves?
Very few.
Not to
Very
know.
few, because
Very
the
few.
population and the people today is changing. That's why we still have to have something that's standing. Very few of us. But
Yeah,
I believe it's a
it's
lot
very
of people.
few.
No, I believe it's
That's
a
right.
lot, but they haven't coming out yet and reached that. That's why the generations, it's different generations, like your
I
generation,
got you, sis.
your generation, you know, like that. Different kinds that's
Okay.
representing different things.
So in any event, we have a situation where Harriet Tubman, what she's most known for was certainly what the sister pointed out. Those 19 trips, she brought out well over 300 people, was one of the engineers of the Underground Railroad.
Mhm.
Now, she said, her quote she used to say all the time was, her train never ran off the track
That's right,
and she never lost a passenger.
that's right.
And it's true, she never lost a passenger. And white folks said, where all these slaves going? It's almost like they got a railroad. That's why they started calling it the Underground Railroad, because it blew white folks' mind. How is she getting in and out? You know, it's like they got an underground railroad somewhere. There was no such thing as underground railroads at that time, you know.
It was the white
Cer-
people,
certain-
they was the ones that was
Sister,
down.
let me,
Oh.
yeah, this, you know,
Let
I
me shut
understand
my
the
mouth.
enthusiasm.
Let me
I
shut-
mean, we
I
gonna,
never get a chance to talk, that's why I'm talking, I'm sorry.
okay, you're gonna get a chance
I
during the
never
Q
get a
and A.
chance.
But we love you regardless.
I'm
you know.
sorry, excuse
No,
me.
we good. So, the white people couldn't understand, you know, how this was being done. And black folks then and even now affectionately refer to Harriet Tubman. What's the nickname, Mike?
Ben,
Moses,
What's the nick? Somebody said it over there, so
what'd you say?
say it.
Moses.
Moses.
And Benta, right?
So,
Benta?
no, her name is Araminta, if you want to
Yeah.
know what her real name was.
Yeah.
Her real name was Araminta. But, Moses, it's apropos.
Mm.
You know, whether you believe Moses brought people out in the biblical text, we know that Harriet Tubman brought people out. And so the sister pointed out that she brought out 300. Is that it, or was it more? What about the raid? What about the raid, sister?
You mean in
Where,
the Civil War?
and during the Civil War, where she brought out 750.
And she didn't lose anybody.
She didn't lose
Everybody
no
came
one.
back. The soldiers came back.
So
everybody came back.
so on that 300, put 750. What's that math? 1,050?
Yes, 1050.
1,050. So from now on, everybody in here at least should stop saying that she brought 300 out. She brought out a minimum of 1050. Minimum of 1050. Because of that raid in that seaport which she was the architect of. It wasn't the colonel. Colonel Shaw, gave her the credit. She developed the plan. She had the intelligence prior to the move. And when it went down, she went and had those people brought on ships and got them out of there. So that was her plan. So even in the American Civil War, there was great black women, and she was one of the spies. And she developed a cadre of spies in that process. Now, it took her years to get a pension, but she did get the pension before her life was over, because she wasn't being paid to do this at that time. They didn't pay her, but later on she was paid. So let's, when we think of Harriet Tubman, who said earlier that she was hurt? That she got hit upside the head?
It's me.
Okay, she did get hit upside the head. Now, whether it was what was said that she got caught so-called stealing a biscuit or what have you, a piece of bread from the oven she was baking and all that, and allegedly.
That wasn't it.
No, it's one or two. I'm gonna tell you both stories.
Oh.
One of the stories was that. All right. One of the stories was that she got caught. Now, she did get hit by the slave master's wife. Hit upside the head with like a pipe. Hit upside the head, and that's what caused her those dizziness spells. Now, the other thing was when a guy who was disciplining a slave threw something, and it hit her in the head. So it doesn't matter what it was from a devil. A devil hit upside the head, and she never fully recovered. She was out of it for a good while. And then the rest of her life, she had dizzy spells. So she was never totally cured of that injury. Am I right, sis?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure that I'm right. So she got the dizzy spells.
There was a dizzy spells from the hit, or was she always kind of dizzy?
No, it was from the hit. Now you can argue about which hit it was. Because you know that old saying about the slave that's beat most easy is beat most often. So you get hits from everywhere. So she was hit upside the head. She had dizzy spells. But, our people were very spiritual. And they even said during those dizzy spells, she was saying, do things. In other words, when she was bringing people to freedom in the North, let's say she, late at night, had one of those spells, and she woke up, she would do something like, say, come on, let's go, in the middle of the night. And they wasn't sure whether she was right. If she said go left, just follow her and go left. If she go right, go right. Because, our people just believe. So it wasn't nothing spooky. It's just that she had those spells, and at that time, with the whatever medical practices they had of that day, they didn't know what dizzy spells was. So some took it as it was something spiritual going on.
Witchcraft stuff.
Yeah, just something other than the ordinary. But, obviously today, if you see somebody having a seizure, then you know that it's something medical. It's a medical condition, as opposed to they're seeing things or hearing things. It's medical. So in any event, Harriet Tubman, who's a trooper, and I identify with those who say that they loved her heart. Because when all is said and done, you needed heart to do what she did. And certainly, she would tell people to keep going when their faith got weak. She pulled guns on people. Men who tried to turn around and go back. She let them know that you either gonna go forward or you're gonna lose your life right here. Because I'm not gonna let you go back to the slave master. Because if you go back to the slave master, you're gonna tell. So, you know, that was the choices. You know, you afraid to go forward, or you more afraid of this gun that I got on you right now. That's the seminal question. You know. And you make the choice. So you scared of what might happen as opposed to what's gonna happen if you don't keep it moving. So, you know, that's the history, and she had to do that, and it worked. That's Harriet Tubman. What about Ida B. Wells?
She was a little short.
Sure.
She's a attorney.
I don't like
Sure,
short.
sure.
You don't like short women. Short.
Okay.
Short don't play.
You gotta slice them up.
No, this
Ida B. Wells.
this
Anybody know anything about Ida B. Wells?
Yeah, she
Go ahead,
was just,
brother. Yes, brother.
I think she was extremely courageous.
Extremely courageous.
Yes, sir. And she wrote, or she brought to light a great deal of the lynchings back in the South and throughout the United States.
Say that a little louder, brother, so the people on Zoom can hear you. 'Cause that's
Yes,
great.
she was extremely courageous, and what she did brought to light a great deal of, she brought to light what was happening to us at the turn of the century with all the many thousands of lynchings. And it so happened that there was a bounty on her head, and they wanted to lynch her because of all the things that she was
That's
doing
correct.
to bring light on that.
That's why she used, what's the term, a pseudonym.
That's right.
Because they would have killed her in Tennessee and other places in the South. They would have killed her, so she had to use a false name for the article she was writing. But you're right, no one was more vigilant with respect, no individual, none was more vigilant with respect to lynching,
Lynching rates.
fighting, for anti-lynching laws, fighting to stop lynching. No one was more vigilant than Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells was a tigress with respect to lynching. Is that mine, Ray?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So, Ida B. Wells, phenomenal. What happened when Ida B. Wells was on a train? Anybody know what happened to her?
She got into a fight.
She got into a fight. The conductor tried to throw her off the train, and she was obviously, in their opinion, violating the law by riding in the car she was riding in, and they tried to remove her, and the one conductor who tried to remove her was found to be unsuccessful. She bit his hand and knuckled him up, and he had to get two other grown men to throw her off the train.
See, that short woman thing. That's the problem.
Now, Rajeen is saying that she was short. At least if you're gonna say she was short, but she was fine. She was fine. Anybody ever seen them young pictures
Yes.
She was
Ida B.
5 feet.
Wells?
She was 5
You
feet.
talking about a fox? Oh
And
my
she used
goodness.
to wear something right here in the center of her neck.
Most of them are fine. Most of the short women are fine, but I just don't like it. They got
What
problems.
did she wear? Okay,
Oh, Jesus.
I don't know what she had on her neck, but
No,
And
a
then
brooch, like,
brooch.
you
Oh,
know, the
brooch.
women in the
Okay.
day, they used to wear those long frocks.
okay,
And, with shoulders up here, then they had like a nice
okay.
brooch.
Well, she was
They were strong.
she was strong, all right. And like I said, she later wrote editor of a newspaper. She incredible. And at the name some newspapers. Anybody know the newspapers that were popular at that time? You know, Freedom Journal was the first. And what about, anybody ever heard of the Chicago Defender?
Negro World.
Pittsburgh Courier, Negro World, you know, all these newspapers, we need to know the name of some of them. So she wrote, and what about Amy Garvey, Jacques Garvey? What about her?
Oh, and then the lady that financed Marcus Garvey and
No, that was his wife. I'm talking about the second wife. The first wife was supportive of Garvey, but it was the second wife that actually distinguished herself because she was his secretary, and she was able to continue his work, and she was just so fierce that even after he was deported, and even after he died, she was able to continue his work long after his death. But she was a fierce fighter and became a fierce fighter, not before she met Garvey, but after meeting Garvey. She became an incredible fighter, nationalist, Pan-Africanist, just like Garvey. What about, and I'm going to name a few more, and then I'm going to open it up. What about Ella Baker? What about Ella Baker?
Who? Ella Baker.
Ella Baker.
Musician, singer.
What did you say?
She's a musician, a singer, famous singer.
No, I'm not talking about Ella Fitzgerald.
No, Ella Baker.
Ella Baker.
Civil rights activist.
She was a civil rights activist, yeah.
She definitely is that.
Anything else?
She was supposed to be with the youth, SNCC, SCLC.
Oh, yeah.
She was sort of like a counselor, mentor to a lot of those.
She was a strategist, right?
Organizer, strategist. She mentored literally all the great ones. She was, oh man, well, put it this way.
Organized a lot of the marches.
Martin Luther King, A. Philip Randolph, all of them. As you said, Kwame Ture, so many others, was in the NAACP for well over 30 some odd years, organized all these chapters all over the country, built the organization, was able to advise in the 50s the Montgomery Improvement Association, which morphed into what? Come on, man. Well, yeah, they was doing the boycott, and that morphed into what organization?
SCLC.
SCLC. That's correct. So, Ella Baker was so a multifaceted genius. She did it all, and one of her distinct qualities was being able to run things from the back of the room. Now, most leaders sit in the front, right? They're in front of the camera, they do the speaking, and they do everything from the front. Who's got the skill and know-how to lead from the back?
Women.
Well, Ella Baker, she could do it. She could do it. She could advise you before the meeting and a pre-meeting, tell you after what you needed to do, what went wrong, what needed to be done, the whole thing. She was, what's that song, I'm Every Woman? That was Ella
She was
Baker.
probably just anointed. Because you can be anointed. Sometimes God and the ancestors anoint you to do a day.
Yeah.
It turn out like that, you know. You don't have to be people, other people look at it, emphasize that you're trying to be all of that. But it's just having the blood of your people, the blood of, like you're a great man sitting up here teaching us tonight. having the blood of your people and wanting to do something to help your people, you know.
Well, she was just, in a word, incredible
That was God.
to have
She was a
done
field
that.
marshal there, that's in other
That
words.
was God.
Yeah,
Field, like a commander, yeah.
field marshal extraordinaire, no question, that she was, and, she just do it all so well. Let's move a little faster. This is one of my favorites, and, I'm not gonna mention too many other people, but, and if I do, I'll do it in a rush fashion. Okay, we doing good on time. How about Lucy Craft Lane? Pardon me, Lucy Craft Lacey. I'm sorry.
Shit.
Anybody? It's one of the baddest in our history.
What she did?
What year you looking at?
What year? She was actually born, 2 or 3 years before slavery ended. No, pardon me, I'm way off. She was born in 1854, so that's actually 11 years. I knew she was born as,
So she was an antagonist?
she was a fierce fighter for our people. She actually what she did was as soon as her father was able to free himself, it took him 20 years to save enough money to buy his own freedom and his wife's freedom. 20 years of hard work. That's her father. And then she was number 7 of 10 of it, their children combined. Now that's a hell of a black man to work 20 hard years and to secure himself as well as his wife's freedom.
First black school in Augusta, Georgia.
Well, yeah, that came later on.
Stop
That
doing
came
that
later
shit.
on.
What's
So-
the name of that school?
So, well, I'll get to that. I'll tell you the name of the school. Now, what she was able to do was educate herself. She went to school. He actually started teaching her to read and write at 4 years old when she was 4, while they were still, during slavery time. So she was kind of exceptional at that. So by 4 years old, she was able to read and write. And so by the time slavery ended and she was going to school and went to Atlanta University, which is now Clark, she went there, and upon graduating from there, she became an educator. Somebody pointed out, I think Ray pointed out. What's the name of the school, Ray?
You still Googling?
Okay, well, don't worry about it. So she first started as a teacher, a school teacher, which she did for 10 years between Atlanta and Augusta and all the places. But she eventually settled down to Augusta, and this is where she developed the Haynes School. Anybody ever heard of that? Because it was the best school in the South. She developed that. What's the full name? Let me give you the full name of the Haynes School, so that, because it's it was the Haynes Normal and Industrial Institute. Haynes Normal and Industrial Institute. Now this is where she really had her calling, because she went from the first year, I think in 1823. No, the first year was in the 1880s, and she had 6 students the first year in Augusta. By the second year in Augusta, she had like about 220 some odd students, because it caught on and black people found out that this lady is incredible. She's teaching them, she got them reading and writing and doing everything. And in no time, she had 224, the number went to 300, And then it actually even went to 800. But during that time, she had asked what Francine Haynes for a loan. Not a loan. What is that called the day when you're trying to solicit money from corporations? You write
Grant.
grants. So she got a grant from Francine Haynes, and then named the school with respect to her, and then she would get grants from all over. But it was the best school in the South, bar none. And this was during the time where, you know, public education wasn't even popularized yet. When you could really, anywhere you are, you could just find a school. That's not going to happen. She had the only one in Augusta for black children. In case I didn't say it before. For black children. Because white people that had money, they were going to school. White people that didn't have money, they weren't going to school. So she was able to do that. Lucy Craft Lacey, incredible. And the school became so popular, and she kind of was at variance with Booker T. Washington. Could anybody guess why? What would make her at odds with the public philosophy of Booker T. Washington? Booker T. Washington publicly emphasized hands. Doing things with your hands as a livelihood. That's not Lucy Craft Lincoln. She said heads over hands. I think she said, okay. She also said race leaders, not followers. So she was publicly saying things that would be considered at variance to Booker T, who was the man at that time. You know, she just had a problem with that. And at a time where if you could write your name and just write a few things, read a few things, let me show you some of the subjects that she was teaching back then. This is well over 100 years ago. She taught English, math, history, chemistry, sociology, and physics. Can you imagine that back then?
Wow.
I mean, she was bad. She stayed on her post as principal over 50 years. I asked before, has anybody done anything good for 30 years or more? She was on her post for 50 years as the premier educator in the South. This ain't no lightweight stuff. She was the one. I mean, God had put her here. She found her purpose early on to teach. And that's what her parents taught her. Not only to teach, to give. Her parents, once they got out of slavery, was giving butter, milk, eggs, meat, cheese, whatever they could do to anybody that needed. And had 10 children. So, you know, it's not like they were rich, but they gave. Anybody ever had a mother or knew of a mother that lived in a project that on Sundays fed everybody?
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
Everybody, I don't care whether you were Van Dykes, Gowanus, whether you were Queensbridge out there, you know, Kingsborough, there was always a black mother somewhere that fed everybody on the Sunday.
Mothers,
Everybody know one?
I didn't grow up in the projects. I was a little
Well, I'm just saying, if you did grow up in the projects or around projects, there was always somebody who looked out. I could tell from the way people shaking their hands.
There was many of them.
They knew.
But those were the mothers and the people that cared back then, you know?
And I'm saying that that's a real good spirit, and we don't understand that sometimes or take it for granted. But there's some mothers like that. They feed everybody. Well, Lacey's mother was like that. Always gave. Always was in the giving in that type of sacrifice. Sort of the way Ray give us soup every time we come
This
here.
was good.
We get some
It's
soup.
lentil soup. It's good.
You know, we get
Thank
some
you.
soup and stuff. So in any event,
Thank you, I'm good.
I'm saying that to say she came from good stock and gave. She gave her whole life to educating people. And let me move a little fast because I do want to have time to have some real Q&A where we can really dialogue. Now, when you look at some personalities who did well as entertainers, people like Lena Horne. I scribbled down her name. Lena Horne and Cicely Tyson. Does everybody remember Lena Horne?
Yes.
What y'all know as a singer, an actor?
She was an activist too.
She was
She was an activist.
senior
Was she
activist.
activist also?
Absolutely. I wanted y'all to say that. I don't want to
What
be
did he
everything.
say?
Activist.
Yeah, she
was.
was.
An activist.
She was.
She was a singer.
Well, everybody looked like
Man, sister.
Everybody knew that she could dance,
She
sing,
was
and
dancing.
that she was
She
an
was
actress.
half white too.
And she was short.
There's no such thing.
What was she? Black?
She was black.
Oh, she just had yellow skin.
Brown skin.
We got people that got yellow skin in
Oh,
this
that's
room,
right.
and they black too.
Oh, okay.
I'm not.
More power to the people.
Brown skin.
Well,
What
look,
about you?
I'm yellow skin.
I'll tell you if you read her jacket, you know what the FBI said about Lena Horne?
What?
She's race conscious.
They said she was dangerous.
Well, of course they said she was dangerous. They said she was race conscious. So they were kind of like totally caught off guard with that. That's like saying, well, she's a Marcus Garvey. She's a Malcolm. She's race conscious. See, we used to take pride in being race men, race women. Now, a brother that's a quarterback in the NFL say, I'm not a black quarterback, I'm a quarterback that just happens to be black. Or I'm a basketball player that just happens to be black. You know, so we run away from that. They have actresses that don't want to be known as a black actress.
You forgot to mention that Lena Horne was on Sanford and Son.
Oh, I didn't mention that?
I
Oh,
didn't know
boy, I guess I messed up. But Lena Horne, the FBI, you know, that was the jacket on her. You know, if you get the Freedom of Information Act, you know, you get an accurate assessment of what they felt about some people. Cicely Tyson didn't take those mamby-pamby roles as butlers and maids and all that stuff. Neither did Lena Horne. Name me a picture where Lena Horne was less than dignified. She just didn't do it. She blew what would be, I guess in today's money, millions of dollars. Because she wouldn't play them roles. Back then in the 40s, she wasn't playing no roles as no maid or butler, sweating with a handkerchief on and all that stuff. Lena Horne wouldn't do it. She turned down roles. Cicely Tyson turned down roles. If the role required her to be nude and all that stuff, she wouldn't take the role. These were dignified women. I mean, now, when we talk about now, where every woman that's doing the news, whether they're doing sports or commenting on something TV, their breasts is out. You know, buttocks is protruding and all this other stuff they're doing now.
There's not all wrong with that.
But in any
They're
event,
told to do it.
Cicely Tyson, dignified. And like I said, the evidence is that the FBI said it. This is not Michael Brady saying it, the FBI said it. Said that she's race conscious.
Just because she was.
You know, because they knew, you know, so you say, why FBI looking at actors, actresses, singers, dancers?
Hey, man.
That's what the FBI, that's what they do. They investigate any potential threat. All these people that you see making all of these millions of dollars, whether it's a Denzel and all these other big time black actors, the singers, Beyonce and all of them, you don't think they're being watched?
They went crazy.
You out of your mind. If you don't think they're being watched, yes, brother.
Well, check this out. What do you think about what they did to Billie Holiday?
What they did to her?
It was totally unnecessary and uncalled for. They really harassed her, made her life a living hell. It's the way Billie was, and I'm not going to say that the FBI or others got her on drugs, but they knew about it when it happened. But they definitely harassed her, locked her up every given chance. They had local police departments lock her up, make her life live in hell. They threatened her to stop singing that song. Come on, what's the song?
Strange fruit.
Strange fruit.
Strange fruit.
Strange Fruit.
That was the
She's
fight
got
with
many
power.
songs.
What's that?
That was the fight with power.
Hardy, Hardy.
What you said, Mike?
I think I saw a photo of Ella Fitzgerald sitting in jail also with a dress on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well,
They were amazing.
that song, Strange Fruit, everybody ever heard the lyrics?
But didn't Nina Simone make that?
No.
She's singing about
Billie
Billie
Holiday wrote it.
Oh.
Not only did she sing it, she wrote it.
Right. But Nina
Now,
Simone
she
sung-
actually saw during, because back then we used to travel on buses primarily, more often than not, so the group. And she saw black men in the South hanging and had the temerity to write a song about it.
Mm.
She's talked about strange fruit hanging from trees.
Mm.
That strange fruit was black men,
I mean,
black women, children hanging.
I mean,
So, yes,
I'm
brother.
sorry.
No.
What's so sad is like, they tried to like stop her from singing.
Yeah, she was outlawed because you got to remember, they can do that. They tried to stop her from singing that,
Yeah.
and she would intentionally sing it. So once they got her on criminal charges, possession, heroin,
FBI.
now you can start barring her from major places. What's the major place in
Cockroach.
Carnegie Hall?
Oh, yeah.
Carnegie Hall, and places like that, the big venues. And then you regulate her to smaller venues, and that's less money. So
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
The song that you was talking about, Strange Fruit,
Yeah.
you know what I also thought that meant? If I can say,
Mm.
like a person that's not of, not of God, or person of like another type, the devil.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not the devil, but
Not
you know what
at
I'm
all.
saying? Strange
Not at all.
fruit. It's not the
Strange
fruit of
Fruit
the
hanging.
fruit of
represents people
the womb.
Well, the thing is,
You know-
our people back then, you have to remember, was much more conscious
Yeah.
of what was going on as opposed to now. We've been dumbed down and lulled to sleep. So we can see things going on every day and don't even get angry
Mhm.
and don't get mad. Our people then understood that song, Strange Fruit.
Mm.
And I don't remember all the lyrics,
Mhm.
but if you listen to that song, you know what she's singing about.
Yes, Lord.
And so it was, she sacrificed her career in writing that song and then singing it. And they would even come to her, she'd be at a venue and they would come to her and tell her, look, you could do the show, but we telling you, don't sing that song.
Mm.
She was singing, and sometimes they would lock her up right after she sing it. They'd rush up on the stage
I ain't never heard of that.
in uniform and just lock her up. It was terrible. But suffice it to say, Lena Horne and Cicely Tyson, they were dignified in the roles that they played. And you could walk out of the theater in the 40s and probably nobody here was going to movies in the 40s. But you could walk out with a sense of pride as opposed to Stephen Fetchit and Rochester and all these other people and the big fat black maids with the handkerchiefs on.
Aunt your mama.
Mama?
Aunt your mama.
The Aunt Jemima
The
image.
memories.
You know, you walk out of a movie theater and, you know, you feel bad. As opposed to seeing a class personified in a movie like with Lena Horne or later on Sidney Poitier and, you know, others who had the opportunity to have more dignified roles, and nobody can point out any undignified movies that Sidney played in. You know, and I'm not talking about his personal life. Yes, he dug white women, that was his thing. But I'm talking about in terms of his acting, he only took select roles where there was dignity. But you know, on a personal level, this thing was white women.
What about those men that had this white paint on their face? What they supposed to?
Mimes.
Blackface?
The mimes and Uncle Tom, they do with the white stuff?
No, it was the opposite. You know, white men had on blackface,
Yeah.
and they played the roles. And the guy who sang Mammy,
Well,
Al Joseph, and all that. You know, they became famous. He became famous. He became like a rich man by wearing blackface. And so what? Okay, when we think of okay, I mentioned Nina and Cicely Tyson. I'm gonna go through some names real fast. What about a person like Pam Ackerman? Everybody know Pam Ackerman? Basic
From
from
Philadelphia?
Philly. Pam Ackerman,
From
born and bred in Philly. Philly became associated with the MOVE movement. Certainly fighting for freedom for Mumia Abu-Jamal. Just seeing her in action, always there and ready for whatever the situation called for. Wonderful sister. It's an honor to be a friend of hers. She's done so much for our people. What about Sister Empress Filet, also from Philly, the Million Women's Movement. Was anybody at the Million Women's Movement? Was anybody there at that march in 97?
The Million Women's March?
What's that?
Men's March?
You talking about the Million Women's March?
Yeah.
No, you know when the sisters from this group said she organized that march. Sister Deborah Johnson, she's not here all the time. She said she was actually one of the main organizers of that march.
She was.
Yeah.
It's no question. She was the originator of the idea and called for it, and it came off. Wonderful sister, you know, she's, when Ray does his announcements, he mentions her and mentions that 10:30 on Saturday nights, her radio program comes on, and certainly anybody can watch if you need the information. Ray can give it to you. She's
Oh, the sister you talking about? She has a
yeah,
radio
Sister
program?
Empress, yeah, and that's a good thing to have a national forum where you could talk and give your ideas and have input. She opens up the phones, you know, pretty early.
That
most
Blog
of the
Talk
time.
Radio?
Blog Talk, yeah.
Yeah.
Ray will give you the information if you want it.
Yeah, I've been on that a few times.
What about Fannie Lou Hamer, real quick? Fannie Lou Hamer, I'm sure
She
we heard
fought.
that.
She fought for justice. She went all the way up to was it the Supreme Court?
Well, she didn't go to the Supreme Court, but she fought for something as basic that all of us have now,
Freedom?
and that's voting rights. She
Oh, yeah,
fought
yeah, yeah.
in Mississippi for black people to be able to vote because you know, before, you know, you go to vote, you see two white guys with no teeth and maybe baby shoes on, and they both had shotguns. And they just sitting there when it came time to vote. Well, if you wasn't really serious about voting, of course you did a U-turn when you saw them two white guys both sitting near the door with shotguns. Well, you know, and also, of course, when you would go to vote, they would give you a literary test. They would ask you how many beans are in this big jug, this big jar. How many beans are there? And of course, there's no way in the world you would know how many bubbles are in the bar of soap. You know,
We're trying to do that now.
you know. So yeah, they find ways now that to keep you from voting. I mean, I think it's Georgia. In the state of Georgia, you cannot give another person water. You know, Ray is passing out water. You can't give a person a water. It can be, you know how hot it is in Georgia. It can get so hot there and you can't pass out water.
What?
They'll lock you up. You can't do it. So I'm just making the point that Fannie Lou Hamer, who eventually organized the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, because the regular white Democrats wasn't allowing them to vote and did not allow them representation at the 1964 Democratic Convention. So that was an all-out fight, and certainly President Lyndon Baines Johnson, he was making sure that that was going to be on television, so he interrupted the process so that they would not cover that spat that was going on at the convention. And it got bad, and to admit it, she got into a verbal fight with one of my heroes, maybe one of your heroes, Adam Clayton Powell. Because Adam Clayton Powell, who was everybody's congressman, not only Harlem, he was Brooklyn's congressman, he was New Jersey's congressman, black people all over the country. He fought for everybody. So he felt that, look, don't worry about it, I will represent you in Congress to Fannie Lou Hamer. And Fannie Lou Hamer was going at it with him, and he said, I got you. He said, don't worry about it, and he basically was telling the president, you know, I'm gonna take care of this. And when he tried to tell Fannie Lou Hamer just asked him one question. You feel you could represent us? She said, have you ever picked cotton? She said that to Adam. Stopped him cold with that one, and nobody could stop Adam Clayton Powell cold. And when she said that to him, he didn't have the requisite answer, because he never picked cotton. If you know Adam, you know he never picked cotton. I mean, he was
He's
a
light
man.
skinned, yeah. Light skinned people don't pick cotton.
Well, you kind of half right with that one. So Fannie Lou Hamer was an incredible fighter for justice, and certainly her thing was getting black people the right to vote. And she was she even threw her hand in the pot to run for Congress. Okay, what about local people? Anybody here got to meet or knew Leola Maddox?
Who?
Leola Maddox.
Viola Maddox.
I used to see him, I never met him.
Never heard.
Okay. She was a good sister, and actually really ran UAN. Alton Maddox obviously was the chairman, but the day-to-day operations and getting the speakers and doing all the other logistical things that has to be done, basically Leola did that. Incredible woman, and want to always credit her with the development of so many people who she assigned tasks to. And among them was Keisha Forrester. Keisha Forrester became Leola Maddox's assistant and was able to learn the skills that she demonstrates today, because she was able to take an active role in the sleepaway camp. She was able to coordinate and do things that took a lot of pressure off of Leola Maddox. So we should remember her. We should remember Betty Dobson, even though Betty Dobson is no longer in New York. At this time, she's still in Ohio. But she did so much. It wasn't just Dr. McIntosh. She was also Betty Dobson. And so many others, real good people at CMOTEP. And they helped everybody. At one time or another, with so many people that they reached out to and helped that were in dire straits. And so Betty Dobson, we should always remember her. And okay, I mentioned Pam Africa already, who also did so much for so many people.
Sister Empress.
And I mentioned Sister Empress from the Million Woman movement. Did a lot. I remember once when, what's her name? I think Janiyah McMillan, a 16-year-old girl, was killed. And she was killed by the police department had arrested her Sweet 16 get together in a hotel, and she had they came into the party and said they were making noise, and she exchanged a few words with the police officers, and they took her. Never to be seen again. They took her away, took her to the local jail, and one of the officers there put her in an Aikido compliance hold to make her comply, because she wouldn't pull up her sweatshirt that she had on. Her shirt, he wanted her to pull it up, and she wasn't going to pull it up in front of grown men. That's what women are there to do the search. But he wanted her to pull up her stuff, and she didn't pull it up. So he used an Aikido hold on her and killed her in that process. Well, Sister Filet had the lawyer on the phone and had me to interview him, and I started asking him a whole lot of questions, because he initially said, well, there's nothing I could do, you know. And I said, you could check the log books. You could see the tours of duty. You could see exactly what time it happened. You could find out who did what. There's a whole lot of things you could do. It's called an investigation. That's what it's called. You investigate. You don't take their word on it and not investigate. You investigate. It was found that he used the compliance technique and cut off her breathing and ruptured her windpipe in that process. And you know what he used, you know, the arm bar that he used. So it was.
Is a 16-year-old girl?
On a 16-year-old girl. You know, so totally unnecessary. You know, all you had to do was have a female take her into a small little room and say, look, let me check you, make sure you don't have a weapon. It's all that's it. But Sister Filet, in any event, set that up, and that just shows you, because Sister Filet's emphasis is on little girls as well as women. That's our movement. Okay, let's move. What about, I just scribbled some names down there then, real quick. Rosa Parks. Everybody familiar with that name?
Yes.
What did she do?
The bus.
The bus.
The bus.
What?
No, what? No, not the bus.
Protest.
He did what?
Protest on the bus. She wouldn't get up to help somebody white or Caucasian that happened to see. I knew it was something more to it.
Right. Okay, basically, she stood up when other people were sitting. And I'm saying that because there was a lot of black men on that bus.
Mm.
You know, we could talk sharp on this one. There was a lot of black men on that bus. Why did she keep her seat? It wasn't because she was tired. That's the conventional story. She was tired. She wasn't tired. She just said, this is it. Enough is enough.
Wasn't there a sister before her who didn't get her recognition?
It was 3 other sisters before her. It was 3 other sisters before her. And,
Ida B. Wells was one of them.
no, Ida B. Wells was not one.
Didn't she have a fight on the train?
Oh, yeah, but he's talking about
There was
actually
3 sisters
thrown
that
off the
sat in
bus.
front of the bus before Rosa
What
Parks.
Yeah,
was,
it was
what
3.
was the one from the Bronx? What was her name? She was at UAN?
Yeah,
Khalid.
yeah.
Now, Mike, what about we went to her funeral?
Yeah, well, it was besides Khalid, it was 2 other ones, and certainly in this particular case, you are so right, Rajim, because it pays to be light skinned and they weren't.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just a sad commentary on our people at that time, but it pays to be light skinned. And at the time, she was a card-carrying member of the NAACP also, and certainly a church woman. So that should not be a factor.
Brown paper bag.
You know, but you know, she was, you know, but in any event, Rosa Parks was the ideal candidate. She was light-skinned, a church woman, NAACP, and Rosa Parks had a long career of doing things. She was trying to even get, get the Scottsboro Boys out, support of Garvey, support of a whole lot of other things that was going on. She was incredible. So people just look at the Montgomery bus boycott as the only situation. And she was a fan of Malcolm, by the way. But, you know, she was an activist extraordinaire. You know, incredible, yes.
She had investigated a rape of a married woman.
Reese Taylor?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what Rosa Parks.
Yeah, some people don't even know that. She was one of the mainstays demanding justice for Reese Taylor. So whether it was rape, lynching, she was involved in so much stuff, but people only know her for the most part because of the Montgomery bus boycott that happened. And how long was the bus boycott, by the way? Come on.
3 years?
How much? 3 years? She said 3 years. How long?
A year and a month.
Absolutely correct. She said a year and a month, 13 months. It started in December of 55 and ended in 1957. So it was 13 months. And you got to remember, that whole time, people walked. And that was incredible to do that. Was that the first time? Where was the other one at? It was one that preceded it.
Is Matthew still alive?
What'd you say?
Was it North Carolina?
Oh, no. It was in New Orleans. It was in Louisiana. Louisiana part.
What was the
It was
name?
Jefferson.
What was her name? We went to her funeral up at the church in
That's Kalia Clark.
Clear Clark.
Yeah. Real quick, what about Maya Moore? Just to give you a contemporary person, a young person. Maya Moore. Anybody remembers that name?
Oh, yeah.
Is that, who's Maya Moore?
She's a basketball player.
Absolutely. Maya Moore. Why would I mention her tonight? Well, Maya Moore, in my humble opinion, is the best female basketball player I've ever seen. She was incredible. She gave up her career for social justice. Gave up her career. It was her uncle and others were telling her about a man who was in jail illegally, that did not do the crime. Well, she did an investigation. She was taking steps and steps towards that. And then before you know it, she gave up her basketball career to help get this brother out of jail. And in turn, it took her well over a year or two, but it happened. And not only did she get him released from jail, because she was able to prove that he was innocent, but she turned around and married him and gave up her career.
Ooh, jeez.
Now, can you picture Serena giving up some money to help somebody in jail?
My brother.
Just recently.
I'll go to jail for that.
Not me.
You know, Serena wouldn't do nothing like
She's
that.
coming. Shit, I mean,
Serena, the other sister, I forgot her name, the tennis player, she was wearing different names like Sandra Bland and other names on the court every time she played. They asked Serena, well, why don't you do that, things like that. She just got mad. She got an attitude and was like, we different. We look at the world different. She got mad and snapped at that the interviewer was saying that, because that other sister was wearing all the different names. Rekia Boyd one day, you know, the sister killed in Chicago. Sandra Bland in Texas, you know, she's wearing all the different names of all these women who was killed by police.
Naomi Osaka.
That's her name, Naomi Osaka. And she's black, by the way, even though she has an Asian family.
I think her father's Asian.
And her father's Haitian, that's correct.
Yeah.
So, you know, just mentioning that, just to throw that name up there to show that, you know, anybody can contribute. We could all make contributions in our own way. What about Carol Horn? Anybody remember her? Is that name familiar?
Yeah,
Carol Horn. Well, Carol Horn was the young sister in the police department in Buffalo. She stopped a white man from beating the hell out of a black prisoner who was already handcuffed. Handcuffed, surrounded by a half dozen other cops. Once they cuffed him, you supposed to put them in the vehicle and you know, conduct the arrest procedures that come to that. You see the judge or whatever. No, this police officer wanted to beast on him, you know, sort of like, what's his name, Derek Chauvin, what he did with George Floyd. So he wanted to beast on him, and she stopped him. And they actually fought, because she wasn't going to allow that to happen in front of her. This is what I'm saying when I say to you that sometimes your moment comes up. You don't know when it's going to come up. I'm saying you can do something extraordinary. You could do something God-like. God uses us to do things. And if you fail when you're told to do something, whether it's feeding birds or feeding a person, you walk outside now, it'll be somebody that'll ask you for food. You got a pocket full of food and bags of food and won't take something out of your bag and say, here, take this sandwich. That's literally criminal. But Carol Horn stopped the police officer. He hit her, broke her jaw, dislodged her shoulder. In that process, she fought him. Do you know what the Buffalo Police Department did? Fired her. Not him. You hear what I'm saying?
False charges.
Do you understand what I'm saying? That all these police officers saw him beating the hell out of a man cuffed. You cuffed, you got your hands behind your back, and you're going to beat on him? That moment was an epiphany. She said, that's it. Enough is enough. and she stopped him, and he started weighing her out. There were a couple of black cops there, and a lot of white cops there. By that time, it was a lot there, let's say a dozen. Did any of the black cops come to her aid? Males?
Nope.
She fought the guy by herself.
Why you think they cops?
You hear what I'm saying? She fought by herself. And they turned around and fired her. She put in a complaint, not only, she put in a complaint about her jaw and her shoulder. I'm not sure if it was any other body parts, but I remember her shoulder and her jaw. When you were in, when we went up there to Buffalo, I was able to meet her and talk with her, and we strategized, and she strategized with 100 blacks on how to get her job back. Eric Josie, our legal person, sort of dealt with that, but so she stopped a beating in plain sight, and they turned around and punished her. It took her years, but by God's grace, she was able to get her job back and all her time back, and most importantly, her pension. She was able to get. It took years. It took a long time. It took over 15 years or more. It took a long time for her to get it. But I'm saying her name and giving her credit for being a Rosa Parks, for being a Yaa Asante, for just being that person in your time of need when you need them the most. That's what she was. She was our Harriet Tubman. I won't say the sister's name from 100 Blacks only because I didn't have this discussion with her. I know Carol won't mind because in terms of Carol's case, everything was resolved not too long ago, last year. Everything, she got everything back. In terms of another sister from 100 Blacks, if I tell you some details, you might remember. Y'all remember the street crime unit?
Yeah.
From Brooklyn? Where they was from?
The street crime unit was in 4 or 5 boroughs. They primarily patrol black communities, so-called high crime areas.
They didn't have guns though.
Kids were called up. What?
They didn't have guns.
No,
What
they
cop
have
you know
guns.
don't have guns?
No, you said,
They had water bottles.
no, but you said the street
Okay,
patrol.
but in any event.
Because they had other people out in the streets too at one
Okay.
time. They didn't have
Well,
no
of
guns.
course, it's various units and even
Yeah.
patrolmen, but in this particular case, I'm talking about a specialized unit.
Oh.
This was the unit that killed Amadou Diallo.
Oh.
That's how they really became a front page story. The killing of Amadou Diallo.
Oh.
Well, it was a sister in that unit. And she was a member of 100 Blacks in law enforcement. I won't say her name, only because I haven't talked to her recently and would want her permission. Well, she was the one that appeared before the city council in a disguise and gave graphic details on what the street crime unit was about, what they did, their daily practices. Well, she got fired that same day. You know, I won't go into all the details, but she got fired. The same way Carol got fired in Buffalo. The same way Sister X, I'll just say, was fired here by NYPD. Now, obviously there's always been a lot of not a lot of black brass, but some black brass. Did they speak up for her? The Democratic Party, for the most part, ran New York City for the most part, even. Okay, but this was during the Giuliani years. And, yeah, this was after Dinkins. This was during the Giuliani years when that happened. So, but in any event, my point is that she she stepped up and had the courage to address and in a detailed way was able to expose the street camera unit for what its pattern and practice was. And that's, I'll just say, Sister Acts. Let me just end real quick so we can do some Q&A because it's almost 9:30, real quick. Three quick ones. Clara Muhammad. Anybody know who Clara Muhammad is?
Was that Honorable Elijah Muhammad's wife?
That's correct. That's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's wife. We don't really discuss it much, but you have to remember when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was in jail, she ran the organization, she ran the operation, and she was able to raise the money to get him out of jail. Now, in case you start thinking he did some kind of crime, he didn't do a crime. He was already 45 years old when they,
For the service.
yeah,
Yep.
for not going before the selective service, whatever that is, where you're supposed to step forward and write your name and do all that stuff. He was well beyond the age to become a soldier. Well beyond the age. I think if at that time the limit was 30-something, he was 45-year-old man by that time. So he was arrested for that, and she ran the organization while he was on the run, and then they arrested him, and during that time she had to run things, Clara Muhammad. And I can tell you something, you know, it was nothing like seeing the sisters in the nation, even to this day, but especially back then, whether it was the 70s or the 60s, to see black women walking in their white gowns and being respected. You know, brothers that were shooting dice, cursing, doing, you know, playing the dozens and all that. When them sisters walked by, they would respectfully take their wine bottle, put it behind their back, and say, "Good morning, good afternoon, sister." Even that winos, you know, and junkies did that, showed them a level of respect. And that's good because the people who you would think have no respect for or regard for anybody respected them. So it was good to see them walk by. And there was an incident that I won't get into of in Harlem, where some brothers, a part of an organization, was disrespectful to the sisters in the EGT, and they got checked real quick in a really graphic way in Harlem. I was in Harlem that day when it happened, and it was something. It was something else, but I won't go into the specifics of it. And I know the captain who did it, but you know, it is what it is, and he was a good brother too, strong brother. Two last ones real quick, and they both were the same, because they both did the same thing. Coretta Scott King. I would say Coretta Scott King and Winnie Mandela, what makes them so awesome, even though they did a lot of things individually, is the fact that they kept their husband's reputation intact. No one did more for Dr. King in making his name a part of a federal holiday than Coretta. Not Stevie Wonder, not anybody else was as diligent in protecting their husband's legacy than Coretta Scott King. You can name all the leaders you want and do a comparison with their wives. No one was as fierce as Coretta Scott King in making sure Martin Luther King had his place set in stone in our history. Incredible. You know, I mean, her record was incredible in terms of what she did for Dr. King. The closest to it I can imagine would be Winnie Mandela. Winnie Mandela supported her husband, Nelson Mandela, when he was relatively unknown. Not only in South Africa, definitely in the world, not known. I'm not saying he was obscure, but I'm just saying he was not well known. By the time he got out, he's one of the most famous people in the world. That was because of Winnie Mandela. Yes, the organization was ANC. They were prominent, they were very vocal, but nobody was more vocal than Winnie Mandela. She crisscrossed South Africa, crisscrossed the globe, talking about Mandela. Made him so famous that all of us over here knew the name Nelson Mandela before he got out of jail, before he became president alongside de Klerk in South Africa. Winnie Mandela. Any man would wish to have a wife like that made him 10 times more famous than he was. So I'm going to stop there. Veronica, I saw your hand. If you want to respond, go right ahead.
For 27 years she did that, and she's famous for In the Bush. Like if we gotta bring it to the streets.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you said that. Winnie Mandela was fierce. I said not only in terms of her husband's legacy. Winnie Mandela told the Praetorian regime, that white-controlled minority government, during negotiations with ANC to a smaller level, PAC and all, because PAC wanted them done and going, but the ANC was ready to negotiate. So they were dealing primarily with the ANC, and basically, she said we could shut all these talks down and go back to the bush. I mean, we'll fight. You know, but that wasn't reflective of the ANC. That was women. Yes.
Was not Pat more, I would say.
Pat Moore?
Pat, PAC. Pat, Pan-Africanist Congress.
Oh,
Were
okay.
they more militant than ANC?
Oh, 1,000 times.
I thought so.
Are you kidding?
Was that Davis Obikwe?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think he came to the East once too.
he did.
Yeah, 'cause I was there.
Yeah, he came to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Because I was there too.
I heard. I was a young kid.
Yeah, well, I was too.
I was 19.
I guess I was pregnant. But, you know, it is no question in terms of militancy, in terms of being really Pan-African, you know, nationalist in that real sense, instead of a so-called multiracial operation, which the ANC was. You know, so whole different philosophy. The names or groups sound similar, ANC, PAC, but they were like night and day. That's like comparing the NAACP, which has always been, and to this day, white control, white finance, the white people call the shots, and comparing it to the Nation of Islam, which is black and black control and all that. Totally different. But at this point, I think I'll stop because
You didn't mention Zaya Wade in one of your women.
Zaire?
Zaya Wade.
Okay. What about?
That's
Because I didn't mention a lot of things. Well, go ahead.
that's Dwayne Wade's transgender daughter.
I think we open up. We ready to open up.
Yes.
Okay, the first question is going to be from the floor. Anybody?
Brother Mike, Hotep.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Hold tight, brother.
Go ahead, Lady D.
It's Brother Brian.
I'll do the rest.
No, we had a question.
Okay, Brian, hold on. I think Veronica's first.
Okay.
I was also going to mention that some of the things that, I don't know if Ali McLean was mentioned, but also the Pan-African, basically explained that he was a racist and he had,
And that he was unfit.
that he
Right.
also came to many things to kill the activists and to stop many of the marches and things that they had accomplished. And with Winnie Mandela, Chris Hani was murdered, the activist Chris Hani. He was stabbed as recent as this January in jail. You know,
Oh,
he should have been dead. Chris Hani is dead, yes. Yes. But,
this is true.
these are attributes, you know.
Okay.
activists
No,
that-
she did a lot. There's no question about it. And that, you know, Jeff Sessions was unfit and,
And still let him in.
well, yeah, well, you know, of course, Trump is gonna appoint whatever attorney general he wants to appoint. He has the right to do that. So he made Jeff Sessions, U.S. Attorney General, the top law enforcement person in the country.
Zoom audience?
Klan is on.
Brian?
Yeah.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah. Okay, on tap. I wanted to say to Mike, he had mentioned two strong black women, Viola Maddox and Sister Betty Dodson. I have put in the chat, Sisters Ollie McClain and Sister Liz Anderson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is true.
Listen, yeah.
Yeah,
He said Ollie McClain
And she's,
and Sister Liz. Absolutely. You know, we have so many people that we can actually mention. There's so many good people that we can mention, and obviously nobody can mention all of them. I just wanted to mention some people so we could see ourselves in each other. So that in that way we will, because as I started out with, people think you have to be exceptional to do something exceptional. You know, when the moment arrives, you know, you just have to be there for that moment, and you can do ordinary things. You could, look, you know, you could, when you're walking down the block and you see somebody sitting on their stoop, 80, 90 years old, say good morning to them. Because nobody might have spoke to that grandmother or grandfather all day. So when you walk by them, don't walk by them. Say, how you doing today? Everything's okay? Can I get you something from the store? You want to know. You want to know if their heat is on. Are they were their lights cut off? You know, and you do block watch or whatever. You know, so I'm just saying there are a lot of things people can do. So there's no one thing that's more important than anything else, because you're contributing, you're saving lives, and CMOTEP, Brother Brian, has helped more people that were in a fix. You know, there are a lot of big name people whose family or themselves were in dire straits, and the thing I love about CMOTEP is that they're Johnny on the spot. They're going to help. And they do fundraising, and obviously CMOTEP is good at fundraising. So I've seen them help a lot of people for so many years. So my hat's off to the mighty CMOTEP organization. Next.
I wanted to, can I say something?
Yes.
Yes, I wanted to know what everyone thought about, today, that after.
Quick questions and comments. Go ahead.
Okay, today, after Malcolm X's daughter, I forgot what's her name, when his daughter is
Okay, but go ahead.
representing him in reference to a lawsuit. So I just want to know, you know, what's the input about that? What do people think about that?
I think that the family has the right to put in a lawsuit like anybody else around anything. I will not look into the interior motives too much, because the thing is, Malcolm was assassinated in 1965. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's right.
So 35 and 22 and 23 is what?
Huh?
58?
35 and 23 is 58.
58 years, right? This been 50 years, 58 years. I would just ask anybody that put in a lawsuit, why did it take you 58 years? What have you now discovered that you didn't know years ago? In the late 70s, early 80s, they found out the people who assassinated Malcolm. Now, originally it was 3 people who they charged. They knew that in a real sense, they, meaning the FBI, knew that the police department charged 2 of the people that weren't involved. Not only were they not involved, they weren't even there. So, because of this new thing that came out a few years ago, who killed Malcolm? And that, I think it's a 5 or 6 part series. It was literally nothing revelatory, in my opinion. There was literally nothing new. One of the only things that I could say that when I watched the video, I said, oh wow, that's interesting, is that before we knew that Gene Roberts was on the scene, undercover cop, right? We knew he was on the scene, and we figured at least 1 or 2 more cops were there. Okay, in that film, I think that retired lieutenant mentioned 8 or 9 cops were there, watching the whole thing. So, to me, I said, oh, wow. He gave a number. He could have said several. I think because he was older, he slipped. He said 8 or 9. So, what in that do you find, whether it's the city, whether it's the police department itself, whether it's the FBI, where's the liability at in that? Now, we knew back then that there was police complicity. We knew that there was complicity with the feds. So, what is new? That's what I would wonder.
They know the names and so forth. The FOIA Act came out, so they have to.
So many books that have been out on that.
So they are officially suing the FBI, CIA, and they know the names since,
They've had they've known the name since the late 70s. One of the real shooter out of the 3,
They said
he gave up the name.
They said Betty had snatched the thing from out of Malcolm's jacket because he had a list of all of them.
I've heard all that. I don't know, but Malcolm didn't know the people who killed him, so I'm not going to put too much stock in that alleged piece of paper. But I will say, for the record, that when one of the shooters, the one who did who was the only man on that 5-man team that gave up the names, he gave them to Constable. He gave the names to Constable.
Man, Constable?
Yeah, the attorney. He gave the names to him. So, what's new after that? The last 2 brothers who were part of the killing, they just died a few years. They were in Jersey the whole time. So, it's not too much new that we didn't know already.
Zoom audience, question?
They're worth lots of money.
Zoom audience? Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times from the Zoom audience. Rashid?
You said there was a lady that had a conflict with Booker T. Washington. Was her intellectual direction the same as W.B. Du Bois?
No, W.B. Du Bois emphasized that talented 10%.
Yeah.
Now, he felt that similar to any organization, that it's only 10% of the people that's doing all the work for the other 90. So he felt that that talented 10 can raise up the rest of us and carry us to whatever goals and aspirations we can reach. You know, to say the rising tide lifts all boats. So he kind of like was coming out of that bag. But Lucy Craft Lacey, she taught everybody. Now, it was a girls' school, but guess what? If a guy showed up, she didn't turn him, no, you can't learn here. She taught him. So she taught everybody. If you came in and didn't know the letter A from the letter B, it didn't matter. You left there knowing. That's how good she was. So she had a problem with Booker T. Washington, I said, his public philosophy. I'm not saying that he had anything against real scholarship, but his thing was whether it's bricklaying, whether it's plumbing and things like that, the industrial side of things, this is what publicly his policy was, because that's how he would always get those grants to enhance and continue the school, because basically white people thought anybody going to Tuskegee, you just go in there how to bake biscuits. You just go in there just to lay bricks. You're not going to be able to challenge anybody intellectually. But obviously, he did develop scholars. There were scholars that came out of Tuskegee. But she made that point that her point was heads over hands. That I'm going to make your brain a weapon, not your hands. And so that's why she had a difference with his public policy, because she was about scholars. She didn't have 100 years ago. She had to teach physics and all that stuff, which she did, and philosophy. She didn't have to do that. Yes, brother.
Yeah, I would think that that Booker T was thinking about how to build a nation, because all those skills were in building buildings, building nations.
Yes.
As opposed to just theoretically, because we can go to school, learn about physics and chemistry, and come out and not learn how to make a match or make a bomb. You know what I'm saying? Theoretically.
Oh, if you're doing chemistry, you're going to learn how to make a bomb. But I got your point.
Right.
I got your point about nation building skills.
Yes.
Now, I would say that with Booker T. Washington, the reason why I don't have a problem with a lot of things that he did, because first, you got to be doing something right if you got Marcus Garvey looking up to you.
Yes, sir.
Now, nation building skills are very important. So if you can build a road, if you can build a house, if you can lay the bricks for a factory, and you can do the plumbing, you can do the electrical, that's nation building skills. They need that in Africa, right? Things like that. So not just scholars, but I think Booker T understood that if he made you the best cake maker and biscuit maker in the state of Alabama, your son is not going to just do what you do. Your son's going to end up in Hollywood or Meharry or somewhere. Is that right? So he knew that if you industrial skills, the next generation will get a higher level of scholarship.
That's what it's about.
So I don't have a problem with Booker T, because Booker T did incredible things. So her, if you want to call it battle, or her opposition to Booker T was just philosophical. But she was about developing great black minds, bar none. And that's what she was about. And she stayed on that post for over 50 years as a principal at that one place, teaching.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow.
And it was the best school in the South. Go ahead.
I didn't come in time, but I wanted to know, did you speak about, what's her name? Shirley Chisholm and Bethune-Cookman?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. And those are,
You don't talk about West Indians.
Shirley Chisholm was West Indian.
I think, yeah.
She was. From, Barbados. She had a sister too. This was right
Did you
there
mention those?
on Kingston.
I didn't mention a whole lot of people. We could do a lecture on what I didn't mention.
Exactly.
Shirley Chisholm, unboard and unboard, dynamic, and had the heart at a time when people thought it was foolhardy to run for president. So you know, Shirley Chisholm definitely has a place in the annals of history, and she was a representative right here in Brooklyn. So you know, she's not forgotten.
You know, they built a big old park over there.
It's named after her in East New York.
That's East New York and that's Flatland.
It's East New York.
Over there
It's-
near
it's,
the shopping area.
It's incredible. She needs more than that named after her, but that park is gigantic.
It
And it's
is.
named after her, in her honor. It's about time Brooklyn did something for one of its own.
But Brooklyn is doing a lot of things. You know, this is money, they building all of these houses and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff going on, even though
Any
there's
other questions?
a fall
No?
in economics.
That's it, Ray?
Is that it, Ray? Anybody else got?
Okay, I was gonna say, when
Go ahead.
you spoke about what new things came up concerning Malcolm's, the fact that he, in the Audubon ballroom, the CIA and them had rented it out the week before.
Yeah.
So, between the both of them, they both
No, it was
being,
not
both
the
are
CIA.
being, the CIA and FBI are being sued
FBI.
by them. Both are being sued by them.
You know who rented the week before? That was the Nation.
Nation.
The Nation of Islam.
And,
It was the Nation.
And some people say the FBI was involved as well, like Dick Gregory.
And that, okay,
Well,
let me
as I said-
say, Baba Dick Gregory and Professor James Smalls both gave a lecture, and they specifically, Dr. Dick Gregory said that he's saying that all that, with them shooting from this way, the bullets came from up and shot him from up down. It was not, the bullets that hit him was not from the people sitting there. They may have been given blanks, but they were shot from
He was
up
talking about
down.
the
So that was
projectile.
the new.
That's not new.
Well,
That's
I know
old.
it wasn't, like I said, we heard it at UAM, but this was some of the information.
Okay, but I'm just saying, it's not new. It's not new about the flashes. It's not new about there might have been other angles. Do you know how many
It's
rounds,
new for
how
CIA
many
and
rounds went into his body?
sued.
So I'm just saying, and certainly there was collaboration. There were people that did different things. Just to compromise security is enough. There's no distinction between a person who compromises security and the people who pull the trigger. That's all part of acting in concert. You understand? So that's part of what a plot is. When you play your role, or you want to say star in your role, you play your role. You complicate things. You hold up the medical. You keep certain people from coming in. You've already identified the very people that's involved. There's no distinction between the shooters and the brother who said, you know, get your hand out of my pocket. These are all, that's a decoy. It's all, everybody played a role. So I know I've seen the things going back years ago. about they showed the flashes from above and below, and these were gun flashes. And whatever with the lighting, all these coordination blinking off and on,
Yeah.
all that. So you mean
Street niggas
This
don't plot
advanced family?
assassinations.
what's that?
Street niggas don't plot assassinations like that. Okay, so that's the long and short.
And the economics.
FBI, CIA, whatever. These are just white folks organized to whoop your ass.
And they can, and the
That's
fact
it.
that they can pay $100 million, they deserve it, they destroy families, and, economically, yes, the CIA and the FBI should be paying reparations to that family and so forth, that's.
Well,
Yeah, CIA,
again, that's a matter of opinion.
They got a lot of money.
Zoom audience, anybody have any questions from the Zoom?
It's up to the judge.
Where they get the money from?
Going once,
Where the CIA
going twice,
Where they get it from?
going 3 times. Ladies and gentlemen, give Brother Mac a great big hand. The William Mackey Jr. History Club would like Brother Mac coming out and giving his lecture.
Like I didn't read that shit. 20
Hold
years
up. Next, in 2 weeks, huh?
Where does the government get the money from?
Great lecture, Mike, great lecture.
In 2 weeks,
Who's that?
we're gonna have Sister Keisha from Thorough Black Talk, and she's gonna do a presentation on Women's History Month. That'll be in 2 weeks. Our Sister Keisha will be here. So give everybody a great big hand. Thank you very much, Zoom audience. Thank you for participating and helping out the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. I appreciate it.
All this
Okay, so
Ali McLean gave out a scholarship.
we're gonna take a quick picture. Anybody wanna take a quick picture?